The night on the alien colony was quiet, but the human worker could not sleep. He sat inside his broken hut, the walls thin and the floor made of dust. For years he had struggled here, working small jobs, fixing tools, carrying loads for alien traders. He had no family, no wealth, and no dream left. His only companion had been an older alien warrior who sometimes shared food and told him stories. But that friend had disappeared months ago, leaving the human alone again. Tonight, something strange was happening. Heavy boots echoed outside, more than one pair. The sound grew louder, closer. His heart beat faster. People like him never received visitors, especially not in the middle of the night. He feared maybe debt collectors had come, or maybe raiders. He stood up, hands shaking, searching for something to defend himself with. Though he owned almost nothing, the door of his hut opened, and cold air rushed in. A group of alien soldiers stood outside, their armor shining under the twin moons. Behind them was a tall officer with glowing shoulder marks. The officer stepped forward and said in a strong voice, "Human." "You are summoned," the human blinked. "Summoned? By who?" "I have nothing." The officer's expression did not change. "By order of the council. You are the heir of Korin, son of Varash. He is dead. His will names you as successor." The words struck the human like lightning. His alien friend was dead? And heir? That made no sense. Korin had been respected and powerful. The human was only a poor worker with scars on his hands. "I think you are mistaken," the human whispered. The soldiers stepped aside and two figures came forward. They were women, tall, elegant, with glowing eyes and flowing robes. Their beauty was unearthly, their faces carved with sorrow. One looked at the human with suspicion. The other lowered her gaze as if burdened by shame. The officer spoke again, his tone heavy. "Korin left not only wealth but also family. These are his wives. By tradition, they belong to the heir. They belong to you." The human's knees almost gave way. "Wealth wives? This had to be a cruel trick." He shook his head. "No, I cannot accept this. I am just a worker." "I have nothing to do with his bloodline." The officer's voice grew harder. "His will is sealed. The council has approved it. If you refuse, you dishonor him and the council both. You will come with us now." Before he could protest, the soldiers surrounded him. His life was being pulled into a current he never asked for, and he had no power to resist. They led him outside, and for the first time in years, the human saw the alien city from the back of a soldier's transport. Lights stretched across the horizon, towers touched the clouds, and streets glowed with strange energy. He felt like a beggar being dragged into the palace of kings, but inside him was only fear. Why had Korin chosen him? Why did the wives look at him with such strange eyes? Half warning, half despair. At the council chamber, a giant hall carved from black stone, the truth became heavier. A will was read aloud, Korin's deep voice echoing from a crystal recording. "To my human friend, I leave my home, my fortune, and my wives. You are more honorable than those of my blood. Protect them, and they will protect you." Gasps filled the chamber. Aliens whispered angrily. Some spat in disgust. A human inheriting such wealth was against every custom. The human felt their hatred pressing on his skin like fire. The officer gave him a sharp look. "It is done. From this night forward, you are master of Korin's house. But beware, many will not forgive this choice." As the ceremony ended, he was taken to the mansion. It was larger than anything he had ever seen, built with white stone that glowed under the night sky. The gates opened and he stepped inside. The two wives followed, silent and graceful, their faces unreadable. The human tried to speak, but no words came. He had never been near women like them, let alone called them his. He felt like a child lost in a dream too heavy to carry. That night, as he stood in the golden halls, he realized his life was no longer his own. Wealth, power, and beauty had been forced into his hands, but so had danger. Enemies whispered outside, waiting for him to make one mistake. And the wives, were they friends or were they chains? The night air grew colder. The human stared into the shadows of the mansion and felt it in his bones. This inheritance was not a gift. It was a test, a deadly one. The transport stopped before sunrise. The human stepped down, his legs weak from the long ride. Before him stretched a sight beyond his imagination. A massive gate carved from shining stone rose high into the sky. Strange alien symbols glowed faintly across its surface. like stars etched into the wall. Guards in black armor stood at both sides, spears of energy humming softly in their hands. The human had never been near such a place. For years he had lived in dust and hunger. Now, in front of him, stood a mansion that looked more like a palace. The officer gave a signal, and the gate opened with a deep rumble. What he saw inside almost stole his breath. A wide courtyard spread out, paved with smooth crystal tiles that reflected the pale morning light. Trees with silver leaves stood in perfect rows, their branches swaying as if whispering secrets. A fountain in the center sprayed glowing water, each drop shining like liquid fire. Every corner of the mansion grounds seemed alive with wealth, power, and mystery. The two wives followed behind, their robes trailing over the crystal floor. They walked with elegance, yet their silence was heavy. One of them glanced at the human, her eyes sharp as if she wished to measure his worth. The other avoided his gaze, her hands clasped tightly as though she carried grief too heavy to speak. The human felt smaller with every step. Riches surrounded him, yet his heart beat with unease. He was not entering a home. He was stepping into a trap wrapped in beauty. Inside, the halls glowed with golden light. Strange lights hovered along the walls without flame or wire. The air smelled of sweet herbs and polished stone. Sculptures of warriors lined the corridors, each face fierce, each weapon sharp. Their eyes seemed to follow the human as he walked past, as if judging him. A servant, thin and silent, appeared. He bowed low and gestured for the human to follow. The officer gave a final warning. This house is yours now, but it is also your burden. Many will come for it. Many will come for them. His eyes moved briefly toward the wives. Be ready. Then the officer and soldiers turned and left, leaving the human alone in the golden halls with strangers who were now bound to him. The servant guided them into the great hall. A table longer than any road in the poor quarter stretched across the room, covered with plates of glowing fruit, steaming meat, and cups of silver liquid. The human's stomach tightened at the smell, but he dared not touch anything. The two wives finally sat at the table. One of them, the one with sharp eyes, spoke for the first time. Her voice was like music, yet it carried steel. Do you think this place will keep you safe, human? My husband trusted you, but the clans will never accept you. Already they speak of tearing you down. The other wife lifted her eyes, sadness deep within them. Do not scare him, she whispered. He does not know our ways. Then she turned to the human. Corin chose you. That means something, but it will not be easy. You must be strong, or you will lose everything, including us. The human felt a shiver crawl up his spine. He had never asked for this. He had never dreamed of riches or wives. Yet here he was, seated in a hall filled with gold, while the weight of alien eyes pressed on him from unseen corners. That night, he was shown his chamber. The bed was soft, carved with stone wings that curved around like guardians. The ceiling was painted with constellations, glowing faintly as though the sky itself had been brought inside. He lay down, but sleep would not come. Every sound in the mansion seemed louder. The rustle of the silver trees outside, the drip of the glowing fountain, the faint footsteps of servants moving in the distance. He thought of his old hut, broken and poor, yet quiet and safe. This place was grand, but it felt like the jaws of a beast closing around him. Near midnight, the human rose and walked to the balcony. The city spread out before him, towers shining under the twin moons. Yet in the far distance, shadows moved. Groups of lights glowed in the dark sky, ships patrolling or maybe watching. He could almost feel hostile eyes staring back. Then he heard it, a whisper behind him. One of the wives stood in the shadows of his chamber. Her face was unreadable, her eyes glowing softly. Human, she said quietly, you are not safe here. Corin's enemies will not forgive his choice. Some will come for you tomorrow, some in a week. They will test you, break you, or kill you. The human froze. Why tell me this? Her lips curved into something that was not quite a smile. Because if you fall, we fall with you. And I do not intend to die yet. The human stared at her, his heart racing. He had thought inheritance was wealth and comfort. But in that moment he understood. It was war. And war was already at his door. The human woke before dawn, though he had hardly slept. The mansion was quiet but not silent. Every few minutes he thought he heard faint movements, shoes sliding on stone, whispers carried by the wind, the soft clang of distant metal. He told himself it was only servants, yet deep inside he knew it was something else. The words of the wife from last night still burned in his mind. Some will come for you tomorrow. Some in a week, and tomorrow had already arrived. When he stepped into the hall, servants bowed, but their eyes were not warm. Some looked past him as if he were invisible. Others stared too long, their faces stiff with hidden judgment. He felt like an intruder in his own house, a thief who had stolen what was never meant to be his. Breakfast was laid out, but he could not eat. The two wives entered together, their robes flowing like rivers of light. The sharp-eyed one studied him carefully. "You do not look rested," she said. The human answered softly, "This house does not sleep." Her lips curved into something between a smile and a warning. "Good. Then you are beginning to understand." Before more could be said, a loud knock echoed through the golden doors of the mansion. The human froze. The wives exchanged a glance. The servants looked nervous. The doors opened and 3 figures entered. They were not servants. They were not friends. Their armor was black, but not like the council's soldiers. These men carried jagged blades and wore symbols of a rival clan burned into their chests. Their leader stepped forward, his face scarred, his smile cruel. "So," the leader said, his voice dripping with disdain, "this is the human who dares call himself master of Corin's house." The wives stood still, their expressions cold. The servants lowered their eyes and slipped out of sight, leaving the human alone before the intruders. The human tried to keep his voice steady. "This house was given to me by Corin's will. Council approved it." The leader laughed. "The council's words mean nothing here. Corin's blood was strong, but his mind was weak. To leave all this to a human is an insult to every warrior who ever fought beside him." He stepped closer, his hand resting on the jagged blade at his hip. "So here is my offer. Leave this place now. Walk back to the dust where you belong. If you stay, you will not see another sunrise." The human's chest tightened. He wanted to speak, to shout, but his throat felt dry. Before he could answer, the sharp-eyed wife stepped forward. Her voice rang like steel striking stone. "This house belongs to Corin's heir. His choice is law. If you challenge it, you challenge his honor. Are you ready to face the punishment of dishonor?" The leader's smile faltered for a moment, then returned sharper. "Do not hide behind dead words, woman. You know the truth. A human cannot rule here. He is nothing but prey." He motioned to his men, and they spread out, their eyes burning with the thrill of intimidation. The human's fists clenched at his sides. He was no warrior, no fighter. Yet something inside him refused to bow. He thought of Corin's recording, the voice of his friend saying, "Protect them, and they will protect you." Gathering what courage he had, the human spoke. "If I am nothing, then why do you fear me? If I am weak, then why do you come at night hiding like thieves? You dishonor yourselves, not me." The hall fell silent. For the first time, the intruders hesitated. The wives looked at him with surprise, as if they had not expected such words. The leader's face darkened. He drew his blade halfway from its sheath. "Careful, human. A sharp tongue can cut deeper than steel, but steel still kills." At that moment, a sound shook the mansion. Horns, deep and loud, coming from the gates outside. More soldiers had arrived, but these bore the council's mark. The intruders cursed under their breath. The sharp-eyed wife stepped forward again, her gaze piercing. "Leave now. The council will not forgive trespassers in this house. Go before you drown in your own arrogance." The rival clan warriors glared, but they withdrew, their leader pointing his blade at the human as he backed away. "Enjoy your throne, human. We will return, and next time, no council horn will save you." When the doors closed, the human let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His legs felt weak, but he did not collapse. He stood tall, though his heart still pounded like thunder. The wives studied him in silence. Then, for the first time, the one with sad eyes gave a faint nod of respect. "You spoke like Corin," she whispered. "For a moment I almost believed you belonged here." The human said nothing. He only looked at the golden walls around him, knowing they were not shields but targets. The shadows had tested him tonight. Next time they would not test. They would strike, and he would have to be ready. The human could not shake the memory of the intruders. Even after they left, the sound of their mocking laughter lingered like poison in the air. He had stood his ground, yes, but he knew that courage alone would not protect him next time. Words had saved him once, but blades would come soon. That night, as the mansion slept, he wandered its endless halls. He needed answers. Corin had trusted him, but why? What secret had the alien warrior known? A secret powerful enough to hand everything to a poor human. The mansion was a maze of wealth. Hallways opened into chambers filled with treasures, shelves of glowing books, cases of strange crystals that pulsed faintly, weapons mounted on walls, swords that hummed with energy, rifles that seemed alive with power. Servants passed silently in the distance, their eyes down, their steps quiet. Yet whenever the human came near, they turned away too quickly, as though hiding something. He followed a corridor that seemed older than the rest. The walls here were not polished stone, but rough, dark, and scarred with marks. Torches flickered instead of glowing orbs. The air smelled heavier, almost burnt. He felt as if the house itself was guiding him deeper, towards something hidden. At the end of the corridor stood a door, unlike the others. It was smaller, carved not with symbols of wealth or battle, but with spirals of stars and strange runes that glowed faintly in the dark. He touched it, and the stone vibrated under his fingers, warm like living flesh. A voice startled him. "You should not be here." One of the wives stood behind him, the one with sorrowful eyes. Her face was pale, her voice low, but her presence carried weight. The human turned slowly. "What is behind this door?" She did not answer at first. Her gaze shifted to the runes as though they reminded her of something painful. Finally, she whispered, "The reason you are in danger." Her words struck harder than any blade. The human frowned. "Then show me," she hesitated. For a moment, her hands trembled. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped forward and pressed her palm against the glowing symbols. The runes flared to life, brighter than fire, and the door opened with a low rumble. Inside was not a chamber of gold or jewels. It was a vault, cold, silent, carved deep into the stone. In the center stood a pedestal, and upon it rested a box made of black crystal, sealed with silver bands. It pulsed faintly, as if alive, as if breathing. The wife's voice shook. "This is why Corin left everything to you. This is the inheritance that matters." The human stepped closer. The box radiated energy that raised the hairs on his arms. It felt both dangerous and familiar, though he had never seen it before. "What is inside?" he asked. She shook her head. "I do not know. Corin never told us. He only said it was something the clans must never touch, something only one he trusted could guard. He chose you," the human's chest tightened. "Chosen to guard a mystery, chosen to inherit a danger even his wives feared." Before he could speak, the sharp-eyed wife appeared in the doorway. Her tone was sharper than her gaze. "So you have shown him." The sorrowful one lowered her eyes. "He deserves to know." The sharp-eyed wife stepped into the vault, her steps quick and forceful. "Do you not understand? The clans will kill for this. They already suspect it exists. If they find out he knows, they will tear this house apart stone by stone." Her eyes locked on the human. "If you are truly Corin's heir, then protect it. But if you fail, we all die with you." The human swallowed hard. The weight of the box's glow seemed to press against his chest, crushing him. He had thought inheritance meant wealth and wives. Now he saw the truth. He had been chosen to guard something far greater, something that made him a target to every clan, every warrior, every enemy in the city. As the door closed behind them, the human looked once more at the black crystal box. For the first time since he had stepped into the mansion, he did not feel poor. He did not feel like a beggar holding stolen riches. He felt like a guardian standing on the edge of a storm. But storms did not wait. That night, as he tried to sleep, he heard the mansion's guards shouting outside the gates. The sound of horns carried through the walls, deep, angry, unrelenting. The enemies had returned, and this time they had come not for gold, but for the secret locked in the vault. The horns outside shook the mansion like thunder. The human sat up in his chamber, his heart pounding. Shouts echoed from the gates, sharp and chaotic. The glow of the silver trees outside flickered under the light of torches and weapons. The human rushed to the balcony. At the edge of the courtyard, dozens of figures gathered. Rival clans. Their armor was black and jagged, their banners marked with red scars. Their weapons glowed, sharp and hungry. The guards of the mansion had formed a wall at the gates, but they were outnumbered 3-1. The human gripped the railing with trembling hands. He had known the enemies would return, but not so soon. And not with such fury. The doors behind him opened. Both wives entered, their faces tense, their robes trailing like shadows. The sharp-eyed wife spoke first. "It has begun. They want what lies in the vault." The sorrowful one added softly, "If they take it, none of us will survive." The human turned to them, his voice shaking but firm. "Then tell me how to stop them." The sharp-eyed wife studied him as if measuring his worth. "You are no warrior, but you can lead." She stepped closer, her eyes burning. "The guards will fight, but they need more than swords. They need someone to believe in. Corin is gone. Tonight you must stand in his place." The human's mouth went dry. Him lead warriors into battle. He had spent his life carrying loads, not commanding armies. But when he looked out at the courtyard, at the guards trembling before the storm, he understood. If he did nothing, the mansion would fall, and the secret in the vault would be lost forever. He took a deep breath and nodded. "Show me where." Moments later, the human walked into the courtyard, the wives behind him. The guards turned, surprise flickering across their faces. They had expected fear, retreat, maybe surrender. Instead, they saw a human, unarmed, untrained, step forward to face an army. The rival clan leader at the gate laughed, his voice booming. "Look at this. The slave of dust dares to play master." He raised his blade, pointing it at the human. "Give us the vault, human. Give us the wives. Leave, and perhaps we will let you crawl away." The guards shifted uneasily. The human felt their doubt pressing on his back. He forced himself to raise his voice louder than the enemy's. "This house was given to me by Corin himself. His blood trusted me more than it trusted you. If you want to dishonor his choice, then come. But know this, tonight you face not a human but his will, and his will is stronger than any of your blades." The courtyard fell silent for a moment. The guards straightened. For the first time, their fear dimmed. The rival clan leader snarled and charged. His army followed, weapons flashing like fire. The gates shook under the clash of steel and energy. The guards met them head-on, shouting Corin's name as if the warrior still lived. The battle tore through the night. Sparks lit the air, screams cut the silence. The human had no sword, no shield, but he ran among the guards, pulling the wounded back, lifting fallen weapons to those still standing, shouting orders he did not know he had in him. He pointed to weak spots, urged the soldiers to close ranks, to fight not for wealth but for honor. The wives stood on the balcony above, chanting words in a tongue the human did not know. Their voices rose and fell like waves, and strange energy shimmered over the courtyard walls. Arrows of fire struck the barrier and dissolved. The wives were protecting them, but their power trembled with strain. The human saw the rival leader cutting down guard after guard, moving like a beast. Fear surged, but so did something else, a fire that had been buried deep within him. He grabbed a fallen spear and stepped forward. The leader turned, his scarred face twisted with rage. You dare hold a weapon against me?" The human lifted the spear, though his arms shook. "This house is not yours, and neither is the secret within it." The leader roared and swung his blade. The clash was violent. Sparks flew as steel met steel. The human's arms nearly gave out, but he held, every muscle screaming. He was not skilled, but desperation gave him strength. He thrust the spear forward, forcing the leader back a step. The guards cheered, their spirits ignited. They surged with new fury, pushing the enemy toward the gates. The rival clan, stunned by the resistance, began to falter. Their leader growled in rage but realized the tide was turning. He shouted a retreat, and the black-armored warriors pulled back, their torches fading into the night. The courtyard fell silent, broken only by the ragged breaths of the surviving guards. Blood stained the crystal tiles, but the mansion still stood. The human dropped the spear, his hands trembling, his chest heaving. He looked up at the balcony, where the wives stood watching. The sharp-eyed one gave a slow nod. The sorrowful one whispered something he could not hear, but her lips curved in the faintest sign of hope. The battle was over, for now. But the message was clear. The clans would not stop, and neither could he. The night after the battle was heavy with silence. The courtyard still bore the scars of war, broken spears, blood on the crystal tiles, and the faint smell of smoke. The human walked among the wounded guards, helping bind their injuries, speaking to each one. He had fought like a desperate man, but in their eyes he now carried something more. They whispered of Corin's will, and the strange strength that seemed to rise in the human when the battle burned hottest. But even victory brought no peace. In the shadows of the golden halls, eyes still watched him. Not all enemies came from outside, the wives knew it too. That night, as the human sat in the great hall, the sharp-eyed wife leaned close, her voice sharp but quiet. "The clans will not give up." But worse still, betrayal lives inside these walls, the human frowned. "What do you mean?" The sorrowful one lifted her gaze, her face pale. The servants. Many of them served Corin faithfully, yes. But others sell whispers for coin. Some would open the gates to your enemies if the price is high enough. The human's chest tightened. He had trusted the silent servants, thinking their bowed heads meant loyalty. But now he wondered how many had already betrayed him. That night, unable to rest, he followed the corridors again. This time he did not wander aimlessly. He listened, and soon, near the kitchens, he heard them. Two servants stood in the dark, their voices low. "He is only a human. He will not last. The clans offered gold, more than we will see in 10 lifetimes. All we must do is open the gate tomorrow night. They will finish what they began." The human's blood ran cold. He stepped back, his heart hammering. Betrayal was not coming, it was already here. He did not confront them then. He knew better. Instead, he turned and went straight to the wives. They listened in silence, their faces grim. The sharp-eyed wife's voice was steel. "Then we strike first?" The sorrowful one shook her head. "No. If we punish them openly, fear will spread. The others may rise against us. We must be careful." The human looked between them, his mind racing. He had never commanded warriors, never guarded secrets. And now he was asked to root out betrayal in a house not truly his. Yet something deep inside hardened. "Then we test them," he said quietly. The next evening, the human called all the servants into the great hall. The guards stood watch at the doors, their armor shining, their eyes sharp. The wives sat behind him, silent, watching. The human's voice carried across the hall. "This mansion was Corin's. He trusted me to guard it. That trust is not mine alone. It belongs to all who live here. But last night I learned some of you have sold your loyalty to the clans. I do not need to name you. You know who you are." Murmurs rippled through the servants. Faces turned pale. Some looked angry, some afraid. The human continued, his words steady. "You will choose tonight. Stand with me and you will be fed, protected, honored as Corin's own. Betray me, and you will be cast into the hands of the clans who will use you and then kill you. Choose carefully, for there will be no second chance." The silence that followed was suffocating. Then one servant stepped forward, his head bowed. "I will serve the heir of Corin." Others followed. One by one, voices rose. Most pledged loyalty, but two stood frozen, their faces hard. The sharp-eyed wife rose to her feet, her presence like fire. "Seize them." The guards moved swiftly, dragging the two forward. They shouted curses, their eyes wild. "You will all die when the clans return. You cannot stop them." The human stepped closer, his voice low but firm. "Then you will not live to open the gates for them." The traitors were taken away, and the hall fell silent once more. Fear lingered, but so did respect. The servants saw not just a human, but a leader who would not bend. Later that night, the sorrowful wife found him alone in the courtyard. She studied him for a long time before speaking. "Every step you take draws you deeper into Corin's path." But his path was not one of peace. It was one of war. The human looked up at the glowing silver trees. His hand still shook from the confrontation. "I never wanted war," he whispered. She lowered her gaze. "Neither did Corin. But the vault. It gives no choice." As she walked away, the human remained in the courtyard, the stars burning cold above him. The battle outside had been fierce, but the betrayal inside cut deeper. He now knew the truth. The enemy was not only at the gates. The enemy lived in every shadow, waiting for a chance to strike. And the storm was far from over. The mansion stood under a sky of fire. Smoke rose from the outer walls, and the sound of drums echoed through the valley. The rival clans had returned, but this time they did not come in secret or in small numbers. They came with an army. From the balcony, the human looked out at the horizon. Hundreds of torches burned in the night, carried by warriors in black armor. Siege machines rolled across the earth. their wheels cutting deep into the soil. Horns bellowed again and again, shaking the air like thunder. The sharp-eyed wife stood beside him, her expression fierce. They will not stop this time. They want the vault, and they will burn this house to the ground to take it, the sorrowful wife whispered. If the vault falls into their hands, the clans will have a weapon no one can stop. Corin gave it to you because only you would guard it with honor. The human's chest tightened. He had never chosen this fight, yet now he stood as the last wall between order and ruin. Around him, the guards prepared, their armor dented from the last battle, their spirits heavy. Some glanced at him nervously, wondering if this human could lead them through such a storm. The human stepped forward, raising his voice. They think I am weak. They think this mansion is easy prey. But tonight we show them Corin's will still lives. You fight not for me, but for his honor, for this house, for the secret that must never fall. The guards struck their weapons against their shields, their shouts echoing into the night. For the first time, the human felt like a commander. The battle began with a roar. The rival clans hurled fire spears that burst against the walls in explosions of light. The silver trees burned, their glowing leaves falling like dying stars. The guards fought back with rifles and blades, their cries filling the air. The human fought among them, not as a lord hiding behind walls, but as one of their own. He lifted fallen men, carried weapons, shouted orders. Every strike he made, every word he spoke, seemed to fuel the guards with strength. The wives stood above, chanting again, their voices weaving a shield of light around the mansion. But the enemy's machines hammered it, cracks flashing across the barrier like lightning. Then the rival leader appeared, his scarred face twisted with rage, his black armor glowing with stolen power. He raised his jagged blade and bellowed, "Human! Come out and die! Your blood will end this mockery." The human knew the truth. If he stayed behind the walls, the guards would lose heart. If he faced the leader, the battle could end with him. He gripped a spear and stepped forward through the shattered gate. The battlefield fell quiet as both armies watched. The rival leader sneered. "You should have stayed in the dust where you belonged," the human's voice rang clear. "And you should have honored Corin's will. But tonight only one of us walks away." The duel exploded in violence. The rival leader's blade slashed like fire, each strike nearly tearing the spear from the human's hands. The human stumbled, blood dripping from shallow cuts, but he did not fall. He blocked, dodged, thrust, fighting not with skill but with determination stronger than steel. The enemy laughed cruelly. "You are nothing human." The human's eyes burned. "Then why do you fear me?" With a final surge, he drove the spear forward. It pierced through the leader's armor, striking deep. The rival's laughter turned into a scream. He staggered back, blood pouring, and fell to the ground. For a heartbeat, silence covered the battlefield. Then the guards roared, their cries shaking the air. The rival clan broke, their warriors fleeing into the dark, dragging their dead leader's body with them. The siege machines fell silent. The torches vanished one by one. The battle was over. The human stood bleeding, his chest heaving, but he remained upright. The wives approached, their robes flowing through the smoke. The sharp-eyed one looked at him with something almost like pride. "You fought as Corin would have fought." The sorrowful one touched his arm gently. "No, he fought as himself. That is why he was chosen." The human turned back toward the mansion. The golden walls were scarred, the silver trees burned, but the vault was still safe. The secret remained hidden, guarded not by wealth or tradition, but by will. That night, the human stood in the ruined courtyard. The guards bowed their heads to him, not as a stranger, but as their master. The wives stood at his side, their gazes steady. He had inherited wealth, a mansion, and 2 wives. But more than that, he had inherited a storm, and survived it. The clans would return someday. The shadows would always hunger for what lay in the vault. But the human was no longer the beggar of dust. He was the guardian of Corin's legacy. And the galaxy would learn that even a human could stand unbroken.